The child nodded slowly. Her eyes dimmed for a moment, as if remembering something painful. Then she touched the marks with her fingers, and her glow flickered. She was sensing the creature's trail. Evan watched her carefully. She was small, fragile, and young, yet she moved with surprising purpose. She was not lost. She was not confused. She knew exactly what she was doing, but the forest suddenly grew colder. A soft whistle passed through the trees. The blue leaves trembled slightly. Evan looked around, but he saw no movement. The air felt heavy, like something unseen was circling them. The child stiffened. Her necklace began pulsing faster. She looked upward. Evan followed her gaze and only saw the dark canopy of branches, until one of the branches moved. Not gently, violently, as if something heavy had jumped from one tree to another. Then another branch shook, and another, and another. Something large was above them, moving silently from tree to tree. Evan felt panic rising in his chest. His instincts screamed at him to run, but the child suddenly stepped in front of him again, tiny arms stretched out, as if she could protect him from whatever was up there. Her courage was incredible, but also heartbreaking. No child should have to stand against such danger. The creature above them growled softly, a low vibration that made Evan's bones shake. He raised his light toward the treetops, but the creature moved faster than the beam. He caught only a glimpse of a shape: long limbs, dark skin, eyes glowing faint red. Then it disappeared again into the shadows. The child hummed softly, a warning sound. Evan understood she was telling him to stay still. He obeyed. Minutes passed like hours. The creature circled them silently, always staying out of sight. Evan felt helpless. He had no weapon, no plan, no idea how to escape. The child, however, remained alert. She watched every direction, sensing things he could not see. Suddenly, her glow brightened sharply. She pointed toward a cluster of trees on the left. Evan stared, but he saw nothing. Then movement, a ripple in the darkness, a shift in the mist. Something invisible crawling toward them. Evan's breath caught. He could barely see it, but the child saw it clearly. She stepped forward, placing her tiny body between him and the invisible threat. She spread her arms wide, shaking slightly but refusing to move aside. The creature hissed, and the air shimmered as its shape began to appear. Its skin blended with the forest, changing colors like a chameleon. Slowly, it became visible, a long, lean beast with razor-sharp claws and a mouth full of jagged teeth. A predator built to hunt in the night. Evan's heart pounded. The beast lowered its head. Its eyes locked on him, but the child stepped closer, standing only a few feet from its claws. She raised her hands, and a soft blue light began to glow from her palms. Evan stared in shock. He had never seen anything like this. The beast growled, confused. The child's glow grew brighter. Her necklace pulsed rapidly. Her entire small body trembled, but she stood firm. She made another soft melody, not as gentle as before. This one was sharp, strong, filled with warning. The creature flinched. The ground shook slightly. The air vibrated with her power. Evan watched in awe. This tiny child, who looked so delicate, was standing against a creature 10 times her size. She was fighting with nothing but her voice and her light. The beast backed away slowly, snarling. Her courage forced it to retreat. Her small body protected Evan again. After a long moment, the creature turned and disappeared into the darkness of the forest. The child stopped glowing. Her hands fell to her sides. She took one shaky breath, then another. Then she turned to Evan with tired eyes. She had saved him again, from a threat he could barely see. And Evan finally understood something important. This child was not protecting him by accident. She had a reason, a purpose, a story he still did not know, but he would soon learn it. The forest grew painfully silent after the creature disappeared. Evan could still feel the vibration of the child's melody in the air. as if her courage had left a soft echo behind. The tiny alien girl stood in front of him with her arms lowered now. Her glow had faded to a dim, weak light. She looked exhausted, almost like she could fall any moment. Evan moved closer, worried. "Hey, are you okay?" he whispered. The child blinked slowly, her glowing eyes softening. She nodded once, but her tiny body shook. She had used too much energy. Evan could see it clearly now. Each time she protected him, it cost her strength. He felt a wave of guilt. She shouldn't have to do this. She was just a child. He knelt beside her. "You need rest." But the moment he said that, the child's expression changed. Her eyes widened again, not with fear this time, but with alertness. She heard something he didn't single quotes t. Evan listened carefully. At first, he heard nothing. Then, a distant, heavy stomp. Then another, and another. Evan's blood ran cold. The creature had not left. It was returning. And it was angry. The child grabbed his hand tightly. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing brighter again. Her message was clear. "Run, now." Evan nodded. He lifted the child gently into his arms, surprised by how light she was. She pressed her small hands against his chest to hold on. He began moving quickly through the trees, trying to stay quiet but knowing the creature was following. The stomps grew louder. The beast was closing in. Evan's breathing became fast and uneven. The forest felt like a maze. Every sound echoed dangerously. He didn't know where safety was. He only knew he had to keep the child alive. The girl tapped his shoulder. She pointed to a cluster of thick trees with roots curling upward like a natural cave. Evan headed toward it, ducking inside just as another growl shook the forest. They hid under the giant roots, shadows covering them completely. Evan held his breath. The child rested her head against his shoulder, her tiny fingers gripping his jacket. Her glow remained faint, barely visible. She was saving her strength. She knew she might need it again. A loud thud hit the ground nearby. The creature was close. Very close. Evan peeked through a small gap between the roots. He saw the creature's claws press into the soil. Its red eyes scanned the area, glowing with rage. The beast sniffed the air, trying to find them. Its long tongue flicked out, tasting the scent of fear. Evan felt his heart pounding. He hoped the child couldn't hear it. But she could. She always sensed things faster than him. She tightened her grip on his jacket, as if trying to tell him, "I'm here. Don't be afraid." Even in danger, she was comforting him. That alone broke something inside Evan. The creature growled loudly. Its claws scraped the ground, digging deep marks. Evan shut his eyes, trying to stay silent. But then a crack. A branch fell somewhere behind them. The creature turned instantly toward the sound. It stomped forward, leaving their hiding place. Evan exhaled shakily. The child lifted her head, looking into his eyes. She made a soft sound, a short, gentle hum. It was almost like she was saying, "You did well." Evan felt warmth in his chest. This little girl, fragile and scared, had more courage than anyone he had ever met. She faced monsters without hesitation, stood between danger and a complete stranger, and never complained. He needed to understand why, but before he could ask, the forest shook again. The creature roared, not in victory but in frustration. It had lost their trail. Evan knew this peaceful moment wouldn't last long. The child gently tapped his chest, then pointed to a narrow path leading away from the roots. Her message was clear. They had to keep moving. Evan carefully crawled out from the hiding place, holding her close. The forest air was cold, but the child's small body felt warm against his chest. He whispered, "I won't let anything hurt you." The child looked up at him with eyes full of trust. She placed her tiny hand on his cheek for one brief moment. It was a silent thank you. Then she pointed forward. As Evan began walking, he realized something powerful. The child wasn't just protecting him. She was guiding him, leading him somewhere important. Something greater than both of them was waiting ahead. And her courage was the key to everything. Evan carried the tiny alien child through the forest, trying to walk as quietly as possible. Her small arms were wrapped weakly around his neck. She was tired, and he could feel her trembling lightly each time the wind passed them. Her glow was dim again, but Evan knew it was not because she was calm. It was because she was saving whatever strength she had left. The forest around them grew darker. Strange vines hung from the trees, and the mist became thicker. Evan's heart pounded with every step. The creature was behind them somewhere, moving silently now. That silence alone was terrifying. The child lifted her head slowly and pressed her hand against Evan's chest. She shook her head, pointing to the right. Evan understood. She was guiding him away from danger again. He changed direction, trusting her completely, but the forest floor cracked beneath his foot. A loud snap echoed through the trees. The child gasped. And then the roar came. The creature was close, too close. It had heard them. Evan tightened his grip around the child and began to run. Branches scratched his arms, roots tried to trip him, and the heavy breathing of the creature followed behind them like a nightmare. The child looked over his shoulder, her eyes widening in fear. Her tiny hand reached upward, pointing desperately. Evan glanced up and saw a large fallen tree forming a natural bridge. He headed toward it, hoping to hide underneath, but the creature was faster. A massive shadow leaped from the darkness, landing on the fallen tree with a loud thud. Its red eyes glared down at them. Evan walked alone through the quiet alien forest, holding a small light in his hand as he followed a narrow path between tall blue trees. It was supposed to be a simple research trip, something he had done many times before, but tonight felt different. The wind was colder, the sky was darker, and the forest seemed to breathe around him. Every sound echoed in a strange way, as if something was watching him from the shadows. He kept telling himself it was only his imagination, yet his steps became slower. The blue leaves moved softly, even though the air was still. The silence was too deep. It felt unnatural. Usually, the forest was full of tiny alien birds and glowing insects, but tonight it was empty. Evan felt a chill travel down his back. He stopped for a moment and looked around. His light showed the trees, the rocks, and the long grass, but nothing else. No movement. No sound. The stillness made his heart beat faster. He tried to continue walking, telling himself that the peace mission needed the samples he had come to collect. Without them, the meeting between humans and the alien species would fail. He could not return without completing the task, but then he heard it. A soft crack behind him, like a small foot stepping on dry leaves. Evan froze. His breath caught in his chest. He slowly turned his head, expecting to see an animal or maybe one of the forest guards, but he saw nothing. The forest was empty again. Still, he felt someone was there, watching. He took a deep breath, forced himself to relax and continued walking. But after only a few steps, he heard another sound, this time closer, softer, almost like a whisper of movement. He turned quickly, holding up his light, and that was when he saw her. A tiny alien child stood only a few meters behind him. She was no taller than a human toddler, with thin arms, soft silver skin, and large glowing blue eyes that shimmered like stars. Her small feet were bare, and her hands were trembling slightly. She looked both scared and brave at the same time. Evan was shocked. He had never seen a child of her species alone in the forest, especially at night. He bent down slowly, trying not to frighten her. "Hey." "It's okay," he said softly, even though he knew she probably did not understand human language. But the child did something unexpected. She stepped closer to him, and then she raised her tiny hands as if trying to block him from moving forward. Her body shook and her eyes widened, warning him of something. She pointed to the path he was about to take and shook her head. Evan looked at her in confusion. Why was she stopping him? Why was she alone? Where were her parents? Before he could ask another question, the child suddenly stepped in front of him completely, standing between him and the darkness of the path. Her little body stood firm, even though he could see fear in her eyes. Evan felt his heartbeat quicken. He sensed the danger she was trying to show him. He looked deeper into the forest, but his light reached only a few meters and showed nothing unusual. Then the air changed. A low rumble echoed through the trees. Not loud, but deep, like something large was breathing nearby. Evan's skin crawled. He looked down at the child again. Her small fists were clenched, and she kept staring into the darkness behind him. Not blinking. She was protecting him. A tiny child from an alien world, fragile and trembling, was standing between him and something dangerous. Evan felt a strange mix of emotions: fear, confusion, and respect. Why would a child risk herself for a stranger? What was she seeing that he could not? The rumble came again, louder this time, and the trees seemed to lean away from it. The child took a small step backward, closer to him, but still refused to move aside. Her courage was stronger than her fear. Evan slowly knelt beside her and whispered, "What is out there?" Even though she could not answer, the child's glowing eyes lifted to meet his, and for a moment, he felt her fear as if it were his own. Something dangerous was coming. Something she had been running from. Something now hunting them both. And she, this tiny alien child, had chosen to protect him. Their story of courage had just begun. Evan kept his eyes on the tiny alien child standing in front of him. Her small frame shook lightly, yet she did not step away from him. Her large blue eyes glowed softly in the dark, almost like tiny lights guiding him. He felt as if those eyes were trying to tell him something important, something he needed to understand before it was too late. The rumbling sound from the forest slowly faded, but the silence that followed was even more frightening. Evan looked at the child again. She was breathing fast, her tiny chest rising and falling like she had run a long distance. He gently lowered himself to her level so he would not seem scary. "It's okay. You're safe with me," he whispered. The child tilted her head slightly, studying his face. She did not speak his language, but she could sense his calm voice. Slowly she relaxed her shoulders, but her eyes never stopped scanning the trees behind him. It was clear she was still afraid. Evan wanted to help her, but he also needed answers. Why was she alone at night? What danger was she trying to warn him about? And most importantly, why did she choose to protect him? The child suddenly reached out with her small hand and gently touched the side of his jacket. It was a simple gesture, but there was meaning in it. She was trying to connect with him, trying to show trust. Then, she pointed toward the deeper part of the forest, the place where the rumbling had come from. Evan followed her gaze. The trees there were thicker, darker, and strangely twisted. Even the air looked different, like a faint green mist drifted among the branches. He felt uneasy. "Is something there?" he asked softly. The child nodded once, slowly and firmly. Then she made a new gesture. She placed her tiny hand on her chest, then pointed at him, and then pointed back at the darkness. Evan did not understand at first. But after a moment, the meaning became clear. She was saying, "I will protect you from what is coming." Evan felt a wave of shock. She was just a small child, yet she was ready to stand between him and danger. He felt a mix of gratitude and sadness. No child should carry such fear. Something terrible must have happened to make her this brave. A cold breeze rushed through the trees, and the child instantly moved closer to him, her small hand gripping his sleeve. Evan could feel her trembling again. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder to comfort her. "You don't have to be afraid," he whispered, though he himself was unsure. But to his surprise, the child shook her head. She was not afraid for herself, she was afraid for him. Evan noticed another detail now. The child wore a thin necklace with a glowing stone, faint but warm. It pulsed lightly with her heartbeat. He remembered reading something in the peace mission files. Certain alien children had a natural ability to sense danger, even before adults could. Their glow increased with fear. Her stone was glowing faster. Suddenly, she pulled on his sleeve, urging him to crouch lower. Evan lowered himself slowly. That was when he heard it again, movement in the distance. But this time, it was not a rumble. It was a slow, heavy dragging sound, like something large scraping against the forest floor. The child made a soft warning sound, a gentle hum that told him to stay silent. Evan held his breath. The dragging sound came closer, paused, then continued. Evan looked at the child. Her eyes were fixed on the darkness, glowing brighter and brighter. Her small hands clenched at her sides. She was ready to defend him again. But why him? Why would she risk her life for a human stranger? He wanted to ask, but speaking might attract the creature. So he stayed still. The child began making another sound, but this one was different, a soft melody, almost like a lullaby. It was calm, yet filled with courage. The sound spread through the air gently, and the dragging sound stopped. Evan stared in shock. Was she stopping the creature with her voice? Was this her hidden ability? The child kept singing. Her eyes glowed brighter, her necklace pulsed, and the air around them felt warmer. For a moment, Evan felt safe again, protected. The creature slowly moved away, fading back into the forest. When silence returned, the child finally stopped singing. She exhaled deeply, exhausted. Evan realized she had used her energy to protect him again. She turned to him with tired eyes, but there was a small, gentle smile on her face. She had done it. She had kept him safe. Again. Evan knew now. This child had a hidden strength inside her, something powerful and rare. And this was only the beginning of their story. The forest was quiet again, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was the type of silence that made the skin crawl, the type that came after something dangerous moved away but was still close enough to return at any moment. Evan stayed low, breathing slowly, while the tiny alien child stood beside him, holding his sleeve tightly with her small hand. Her glowing blue eyes scanned every shadow. She did not blink. She did not relax. Even though she had stopped the creature with her strange melody, she knew the danger was far from over. Evan tried to stay calm, but questions raced through his mind. What was that creature? Why was it hunting in the forest tonight? And how did this tiny child have the power to push it back? The child tugged softly at his sleeve and pointed to the ground. Evan leaned closer and saw something he had missed earlier, long, deep marks in the dirt. They were wide scratches, like claws dragging across the earth. The lines were fresh. Evan swallowed hard. It was here. Right in front of us, he whispered. Its claws dug into the bark. Its mouth opened in a deep, hungry snarl. Evan froze. He couldn't run. He had nowhere to hide. The beast jumped down, shaking the ground. Evan shielded the child with his arms as the creature stepped closer. It lowered its head, ready to strike. The child pushed against Evan's chest, trying to get free from his arms. Evan shook his head, panicked. No, stay behind me. But the child insisted. Her eyes glowed brighter, brighter than before. She slid out of his arms and landed gently on the ground. Her small legs shook, but she stood tall. She walked in front of him, a tiny figure facing a monster. The creature roared, its breath shaking the leaves. Evan reached for her, desperate to pull her back. But the child raised her hand gently, telling him to stop. Her calm expression made his heart ache. She wasn't doing this because she was brave. She was doing it because she had no choice. Her necklace began to glow, not softly like before, but fiercely. The light spread across her small body, turning her into a bright blue spark in the darkness. The creature snarled and stepped forward, The child closed her eyes. Evan felt the air shift. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Suddenly the child released a burst of blue light. It shot outward like a wave, silent but powerful, hitting the creature straight in the chest. The beast roared in pain, stumbling backward. The ground around them glowed with the child's energy, making the trees shake and the mist swirl like smoke. Evan shielded his face from the flash of light. When he looked again, he saw the tiny child struggling to stay on her feet. Every breath she took seemed heavy. The glow from her body flickered like a dying flame. The creature roared again, weaker this time. The light had burned its skin. It backed away, confused and frightened. The child raised her hands again, but this time, her glow was faint. She had used too much of her power. Her knees buckled. Evan rushed forward and caught her before she hit the ground. Her tiny head rested against his arm, her breathing shallow and slow. Her necklace dimmed to a soft pulse. Hey. Stay with me, Evan whispered, voice shaking. The child opened her eyes weakly. She touched his cheek with her small hand, her skin cold. The message in her gaze was clear. I had to do it. To save you. Evan felt pain deep in his heart. She had risked everything for him. A stranger. A human she didn't even know. The creature, now terrified of her power, ran back into the shadows. It wanted no part of the glowing child who could break the darkness with a single burst. Evan held her close, feeling her heartbeat slow. He couldn't allow her to use her power again. She would not survive. He stood up and whispered, I promise. I won't let anything happen to you. The child blinked softly, trusting him once more, but deep inside. Evan knew this. Her power was rare, dangerous, and never meant to be used by someone so young. She had revealed a secret she never wanted to show. And now, everything was about to change. Evan held the tiny alien child tightly in his arms as he walked through the forest. Her breathing was weak, but steady. She had her small head resting against his chest, eyes half closed. Her glow had faded almost completely, leaving only a faint shimmer around her skin. She was exhausted after using her power, and he knew she could not use it again without risking her life. He moved carefully, stepping over fallen branches and avoiding loud noises. The creature was still somewhere in the forest, but for now, the night was quiet. Too quiet. Every step felt heavy, every shadow felt alive. But Evan didn't care about the danger anymore. His mind was only focused on keeping the child safe. The little girl lifted her hand weakly and touched his jacket. She hummed a soft note, a sound that usually meant warning, but this time it wasn't sharp. It was gentle, calm, a sign that she trusted him. Evan looked down at her. I'm here. I won't leave you, he whispered. Her tiny fingers curled lightly around his jacket, as if holding onto his promise. They moved deeper into the forest, following a path the child had shown earlier. Evan wasn't sure where it led, but he trusted her senses more than his own. With each step, he felt more connected to her, this small, fragile life he had met only hours ago, yet now felt deeply responsible for. He couldn't stop thinking about the courage she'd shown, how she faced a monster without fear, how she used her power even though it hurt her, how she chose to protect him, a complete stranger. It didn't make sense. No child should have that kind of burden. No child should have to fight. Evan wished he could take her pain away. After a while, the forest began to change. The air was warmer here, the mist thinner, and tiny glowing insects floated around like drifting stars. The little girl blinked softly, her eyes reacting to the gentle lights. She lifted a weak hand, and one of the insects landed on her palm, glowing softly. For a moment, she smiled, a small, tired smile, but a real one. It made Evan's chest tighten. He hadn't seen her smile before. It reminded him that she was just a child who wanted peace, not fear. Do you live near here? Evan asked quietly. The child looked up at him, then pointed forward. Evan followed her gesture. In the distance, he saw a dim blue glow, almost like a hidden clearing. He walked toward it, hoping she was guiding him to safety. But when they reached the glowing area, he realized it wasn't a village or shelter. It was a small fountain-like formation made from glowing stones. A natural energy source. The air around it hummed softly. The child reached out her hand toward the stones. Her glow pulsed faintly in response. Evan gently placed her down beside the formation. She touched one stone with her fingertips. The stone brightened and energy flowed through her like a warm breath. Her body relaxed. Her glow became a little stronger. She opened her eyes fully for the first time since she collapsed. Evan exhaled in relief. "You're healing," he whispered. The child nodded slowly. She sat beside the stones, breathing calmly as they restored her strength. Evan sat next to her, watching the trees carefully. For a while, neither of them spoke. She rested her small head against his arm. Evan looked down and felt an unexpected warmth spread through him. In the middle of fear, in the middle of danger, a bond had formed, not by choice, but by courage. The child then touched his hand and made a series of soft hums, a pattern he hadn't heard before. She pointed to her heart, then to his, then brought her hands together. Evan understood instantly. She was telling him, "We are connected now." He felt a lump in his throat. "I'll protect you too," he said softly. Her eyes glowed warmly. The fear that had once filled them was now replaced with trust, deep, real trust. She leaned lightly against him, comforted by his presence, but their peace didn't last long. A sudden gust of wind shook the trees. The forest lights dimmed. The child tensed again, her glow flickering. Evan immediately stood up, alert. "You sense something," he said. She nodded. Then she pointed behind them, not in fear, but in urgency. Something was coming. Something different. Something bigger than the creature they had faced before. Evan lifted her into his arms again. She held onto him tightly, her glow now steady and strong, not from power, but from determination. Their bond had changed everything. Whatever waited ahead, they would face it together. Evan held the tiny alien child close as he stepped away from the glowing stones. Her strength had returned a little, but she was still tired. Her small arms were wrapped around his neck once again, and her glowing blue eyes stayed alert, watching the shadows as the wind grew colder. The trees shook softly, whispering warnings he could not understand. But the child understood everything. She pressed her small hand against his chest, urging him to move faster. Whatever was coming now was not the same creature they had escaped before. This presence was heavier, older, stronger. Evan felt it too. A strange vibration in the ground, soft but growing. He whispered, "Is something else out there?" The child nodded, her eyes full of worry, yet glowing with determination. He followed her guidance through the forest, until they reached a large open clearing. The clearing felt wrong. The air was thicker. The sky above them flickered with faint green light. Something powerful was near. The child pushed against Evan's chest, signaling him to put her down. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. She nodded again, more firmly this time. He gently placed her on the ground. Her tiny legs wobbled, but she remained standing. She looked ahead, scanning the field. Her necklace pulsed steadily now, not with fear but with purpose. Evan could sense that she knew exactly what was coming. A deep rumble rolled across the ground. Then another, and another. Trees bent slightly as something large approached. Not running like the earlier creature, this one walked with controlled strength, each step shaking the earth. The child stepped in front of Evan again, small and brave. Her glow brightened even though her body trembled. Finally, the figure emerged from the shadows. It was enormous, twice the size of the previous monster. Its dark skin was covered in jagged plates, and its eyes burned with a deeper red. It looked like a creature born from ancient nightmares. Its claws sank into the soil as it studied them. Evan felt fear freeze every part of him, but the tiny child stepped forward. The huge beast growled. Not at Evan, but at her. The child lifted her trembling hands. Her glow began to spread again, but Evan could see the strain on her face. Using her power this soon was dangerous. She had barely recovered. No, stop, Evan whispered, stepping closer. It will hurt you again. She looked back at him with soft eyes, full of kindness, full of love, and shook her head. This was her choice, her destiny. She pointed at him. Then at herself. Then at the beast. And Evan understood her message. If I do not stop it, it will destroy you. The bond between them tightened in his chest. He wanted to grab her, protect her, run away with her, anything to keep her safe. But he couldn't. She had already chosen her path. The beast roared and charged toward them. The child closed her eyes and raised both hands. Her small body glowed so brightly it lit up the entire clearing. The air vibrated with energy. Her necklace shone like a star. Evan felt the pressure of her power pushing outward. The light grew stronger and stronger until it was almost blinding. The beast lunged. The child released everything she had left. Shockwave burst from her tiny body, a brilliant blue wave that shook the trees, bent the grass, and cut through the darkness like lightning. The beast crashed backward, thrown across the clearing. It screamed in pain as the light burned its skin. It tried to stand, but it couldn't. The wave had struck its core. After struggling for a moment, the beast collapsed and lay still. The forest fell silent. The light around the child flickered, then faded completely. Her knees buckled. Evan rushed forward and caught her before she hit the ground. She was cold. Too cold. Her tiny eyes opened weakly, glowing only faintly now. She looked up at him with a fragile smile, a smile that told him she was glad he was safe. No, stay with me, Evan whispered, voice shaking. She lifted her hand slowly and touched his face one last time. Her touch was soft and warm, like the glow she used to carry. Her eyes said everything. You are safe. Because of me, and now, humanity must protect my kind too. With her last bit of strength, she pressed her head gently against his chest, and then, her glow faded into darkness. Evan held her close, tears falling silently. The little girl who had stood between him and danger. The child who fought monsters. The child who trusted him with her life. She had changed everything. Hours later, when rescue teams arrived and heard Evan's story, the truth spread across planets. Her courage became a symbol. Her sacrifice opened the first real path to peace. Between humans and her species, statues were built in her honor. Songs were written about her bravery. Children across galaxies learned her name, but Evan remembered her not as a hero, not as a legend, but as a small child with glowing eyes, who had loved deeply and protected fiercely. A tiny child whose courage changed the fate of two worlds forever.